And joining us now, three Gulf Coast governors who are trying to deal with all of this. Haley Barbour of Mississippi, Bob Riley of Alabama, and Charlie Crist of Florida. I want to go to Governor Barbour first. Well, Governor, you just heard what the Admiral said, and that is they're going to ask BP to set aside this escrow fund to be administered, apparently, by a third party, someone not in the company, to start getting this claims money out. How does that strike you?
Well, the law is very clear. It's BP's responsibility to pay for all of this, and the mechanism for doing it needs to be one that's friendly to the claimant. Now, in fairness, we in Mississippi haven't had as many claims as Louisiana or even Alabama, but we will have, and we want a system that works for our claimants, works for the people who've been damaged, and BP's supposed to pay for it. The law is very clear on that.
The president is going down to your state, to all of the states tomorrow along the coast. You're going to talk to him. Then we're told he's going to come back and address the nation from the Oval Office on Tuesday night. That will be before he meets with the BP executives on Wednesday. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a little surprising to me. I mean, normally, if I were as governor trying to make sure somebody does something, I would meet with them before I went on television. But I mean, it's up to the president. That's not up to me.
Do you think that BP is responsible for the lost wages that these oil workers are facing now that the moratorium, now that the drilling offshore has been halted?
Well, I'm like a lot of people, and there's no unanimity about this, but I don't think we should have a moratorium. There have been more than 30,000 oil wells drilled in the Gulf of Mexico in the last 50 years. This is the first time something like this has ever happened, and we need to get to the bottom of it, find out what happened, make sure it doesn't happen again. But I think it is very reasonable to continue to drill, and the reason I say that is if we don't, then all this oil drilling equipment is going to leave the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to go to West Africa, to Brazil, to Australia, to China, and it's not going to be back in 6 months when the moratorium's over. It's going to be gone. We produce 30% of our oil in the United States and the Gulf of Mexico. You shut that down, and it'll have an enormously negative effect on the national economy. What's going on right now is hurting my state's economy and these other Gulf states that you're going to be talking to. This moratorium is going to hurt the national economy.
Is that what you're going to tell the president when you meet with him tomorrow?
Yes, sir. It's one of the things I'm going to tell him. Thad Allen talked about another thing that I think is very important, and that is our plan from the beginning has been to fight the oil offshore. The BP plan has been more to fight the oil out around the well, and I was glad to hear Admiral Allen say they're going to do more of what we have been asking, and that is to have a strong, in-depth defense that expands from 20 miles offshore, back to the Barrier Islands, back to the Sound, back to the shoreline, and protects the bays and the habitat. Those are some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Let me ask you this, Governor. You have been saying that Mississippi is hurting because of media coverage of this. I mean,
yes,
what
sir.
would you have us do, not show these pictures?
No, there should be a differentiation, Bob. The news coverage of this is, of course, there's a lot of it, and it's very sensational, and it's the worst pictures that you can get, and it shows every hour on cable news and several times a day on the regular networks. And the people of the United States have the impression the whole Gulf of Mexico is ankle deep in oil, which is simply not the case, and everybody knows it's not the case. By God's grace, we haven't had any oil yet reach the shore of Mississippi. We've had a couple of incursions on our Barrier Islands, but we have lost the first third of the tourist season. And as Admiral Allen said, there are a lot of people on the coast that make most of their living in 3 months. And they have been clobbered because of the misperception that our whole coast is knee-deep in oil. The news media could have differentiated between what's going on in Louisiana and what's happened to us, but
All right.
chose not to.
All right. Well, we'll maybe come back to you if we have time in a minute, but we're going to take a break now and come back and talk to Governor Bob Riley of Alabama and Governor Charlie Crist of Florida in a minute.